Hello, I'm Arati Rana, a software engineer at Grafana Labs. I'm very glad to be with you at GopherCon. I wish I could see you better. In fact, GopherCon 2023 is the starting point of my Go contribution story. More specifically, the postcard station right there outside the doors. Well, not that exact one, but Jonathan Amsterdam and I met over the international stamps. He is, of course, one of the speakers and a member of the Go team. Where are you, Jonathan? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I need you right now. OK. Somehow, by the end of our chat, he agreed to mentor me. Learning from him was one of the main reasons I decided to contribute, or attempt to at least, contribute to Go. Another driver was the language itself, improving my grasp of a language I enjoy. His initial recommendation, which aligns with the contribution guide, was to consult the issue tracker. The problem is that there are over 9,000 open issues as of last week, many with obscure names. Side note, I will be referring to Jonathan Amsterdam as JBA. It's his GitHub handle, and also it's a very Go name. So some days later, he suggests implementing a proposal to add the output method to testing. The proposal had a few different iterations, but basically, toutput is a more flexible tlog. Unlike log, output adds minimal formatting and provides buffering. I was delighted with the issue. It was a self-contained change, not too big, but definitely still a challenge. So we come to my first recommendation. Instead of starting with the main issue tracker, go to the proposal board in the GitHub project section. There's a smaller selection of tickets, and the issues tend to be more substantial. Next, I had to get my local environment set up. The contribution guide is an excellent resource for this. But the number of steps and the new tools it introduces was still daunting. Fortunately, Alex, an ex-colleague and friend, agreed to collaborate on toutput. It helped a lot going through the steps and being able to compare notes with her. So an edge I had in contributing is the collaboration with JBA and Alex. I invite you to reflect on the uniqueness of your circumstances and how they might help. Perhaps there's a package you use at work that stands out, or one you could introduce. Do you have self-allocated learning time? Or perhaps there's a Go pet peeve that you want to think about, because making a proposal is one way to get your issue. Before the implementation stage, we needed to understand toutput better. We started with lots of close reading, parsing discussions to gather specs, and also make sense of the different opinions on the issue. In retrospect, the large amount of reading we had to do was due to the specific issue we were working on. It was specific to toutput. Foreshadowing. But first, an early win. Because of all this reading, I found a file with naming inconsistencies. The fix for this was my first contribution to the project. We have it there, that star. So actually, making a minor change is a good way to validate your setup and also to get onboarded into the review process. You want to do this early so that you don't get confused between setup problems and code ones. One more tip, subscribe to the Golang dev group. The Golang dev group right there. I was about to say subscribe and hit the like button. But if you're watching from the future, why don't you go ahead and do that as well? People discuss code reviews on there, what they're working on, even how to start contributing. And the updates on the development cycle will be really useful later on in the process. We eventually got to the prototype building stage. The Go toolchain presented an early challenge, though. There's this file, all bash, in the project, which is used to build the toolchain to include all the changes you have locally. It lives in the bin directory of the repository. This is different from the toolchain you use for other projects. So at first, copying JBA, I set the path in my shell to start with the Go project. The idea was to allow a seamless switching between the different toolchains. But I ran into issues with Grafana, which I work on for my day job, where it stopped working locally. Was it because of a recent Go update? Was it Grafana doing its monstrous repo thing? Had I forgotten a goat sacrifice? I had no idea what was going on. Of course, it turned out to be a toolchain issue. Setting the path should have worked. Perhaps I set it incorrectly, or a difference of environment came into play. I'm still scarred from the experience and have not gone back to confirm. The fix for me was setting the path to a different value depending on the project. Not elegant, but it works. For work, I add the Go path value at the end of the path. For Go, I have the Go project at the beginning of the path. Now, about 3 months after we had started, JBA told me the proposal might not lead anywhere. We agreed it was a good exercise regardless, and continued building, particularly because Alex and I were getting lots of great feedback from JBA. Validation of requirements, code reviews, Go best practices. 6 weeks later, the warning got starker. JBA suggested pausing until the proposal had progressed. I might not have realized it fully at the time, but it was a big gamble working on an active proposal. I think most proposals don't ever reach the acceptance stage. I could only interpret JBA's words to mean that we were on the losing end of the bet we had taken on T output. The discussion on the proposal came to a halt. We eventually stopped checking the issue and started over. We worked on the goenv command next. It enables users to share their local configuration. This is helpful, for example, when you're reporting a bug. The thing is, it prints out everything, and it's a lot. There was a proposal to optionally only print out non-standard values. It was unassigned, and in fact, there was an open call for for prototypes, and it had remained unanswered for more than a month. Once we had something working, I posted in the issue mentioning that we had a work in progress. So, when the next day I saw a post from another contributor saying they had a prototype, it was a shock. There it was, a freshly opened PR, and it was not mine. What happened is that we got scooped. A completely normal situation. That one did sting, though. I think until this talk, I had blocked out that we'd worked on it for over 6 weeks. JBA's advice at the time stands out. Be prepared to waste the work, in the sense that it may not land in the repo. It may still be valuable to you and to others. For me, it was a reminder to keep an open source attitude. So we dusted ourselves off once again and returned to the issue tracker. This time focusing on tickets that could be implemented in a single day. After a while, Alex and I got extra busy and paused work on the Go project. This was March last year. Fast forward to January this year. I received an email from JBA entitled, "Some movement on that issue." Which issue could it be? I wonder. Some months earlier, the Go project tech lead position had passed from Russ Cox to Austin Clements. This major change also shifted the pieces on the proposal board. T-output was back in play. Alex and I resumed work on its implementation. JBA's idea was to do it in 2 parts. The first part being refactoring log to rely on T-output. Output can basically do everything that log can if you ignore formatting and call site information. 2 weeks after that, we had a draft sent to Gerrit. This gave us more visibility, but there was still a lot to do. Gerrit, by the way, is not a Go maintainer. It's Google's review tool, code review tool. It's inescapable and quite nice in its own way. While the PR you open in GitHub will have a corresponding CL in Gerrit and will be synced with it, to participate in the code review process, you do have to use Gerrit directly. As a newcomer, I am happy with my decision to stick to the GitHub workflow and learn only the bare minimum of Gerrit. Here it is, the bare minimum of Gerrit. PRs are CLs, also known as change lists. All changes pushed at the same time get grouped into a single patch set. There are no commits. PR description formatting is very specific. This actually tripped me up early on. Markdown is verboten. No markdown. Also, you need to insert new lines yourself so that no line is longer than 76 characters. Don't ask me how they came up with that number. It's easy to forget, but once you reply to review comments, you have to click the blue reply button at the top. Otherwise, your messages will not be published. Finally, also in the UI, there is a link to run try jobs. I personally have never clicked on it. Don't know what happens. It's always been done by the maintainers. I'm told that it's basically a way to run tests on different architectures. When tests failed, I found the logs to be great, and finding the fix was relatively easy thanks to them. In February, it started to look like the proposal really would go through. It was time to turn up the heat. We needed a complete implementation before the proposal was officially accepted. Otherwise, we would have nothing to show for ourselves when the proposal became ripe for the picking. This marked a fork in the road in the collaboration with Alex. I felt urgency from not wanting to get scooped again, and I think the project had become more stressful than fun for Alex. We parted ways as collaborators, but we're definitely still friends. The 3 weeks that followed were a blur of code review rounds. In the meantime, the proposal moved from active status to likely accept. A good thing. And then, a week later, it was accepted. Most of the implementation was in place on the big day, and the chances of getting scooped receded. Having JBA's backing also really helped. But there was a chill in the air. Something like winter was coming. Or in this case, a code freeze in May. And somehow, still, there was this mountain of work ahead. Review comments to address, tests to add, issues to fix, code to polish. The Golang dev group mentioned earlier is a good resource for planning your changes. Various dates related to the development cycle get sent out. For example, a reminder about the code freeze for 125 was sent 4 weeks prior. So it was time to redouble my efforts. More review rounds. Contributors are warned that reviews can be extensive and detailed. I definitely found that to be the case. But it was also one of the highlights of my experience. Some feedback that stands out includes JBA's idea to have log rely on output. It unlocked the final design. It was so satisfying to take apart log, find the pieces that belonged to output, and then put the whole thing back together in a completely new order. A second example was to use n instead of l as a variable. It's more readable that way. Don't laugh. This stage is where Gerrit shines for me in comparison to GitHub. There's a view with a list of all unresolved comments that works well as a to-do list. Also, unresolved comments are marked in yellow, so they stand out in the patch set view. At this point, there were already over 70 comments, and we were not done yet. JBA told me that this is not unusual, and that there are plenty of CLs with even more comments. Apparently, even with many comments, it is also not uncommon for CLs to get reverted. May 13th, the CL got merged. I'm glad you're feeling this moment with me. And promptly got reverted. It was like JBA had a crystal ball. Fortunately, I was able to find the issue, fix it, and send the change again the same day. It got merged once more. Phew. And that's when I started refreshing Gerrit obsessively. In fact, I refreshed it this morning before this talk. But the next piece of news came from JBA. A bug in a test had been found during internal testing, and he had it fixed right away so as not to risk a revert. And that dreaded code freeze I had told you about, the one in May, it was happening the very next week. We're no longer in May, as you might know. The code freeze cutoff is now behind us. What happened? Did the change make it into 1.25? Before we get to that, I want to share some thoughts on the whole experience. First, it was a lot of learning. In fact, I think it's the best way I know of to learn to write more polished code. Among other things, I learned more about mutexes, allocations, benchmarks, and troubleshooting race conditions. You don't have to know anything about these topics to contribute. Contributing is what gives you that knowledge. Second, I feel so grateful towards the people I got to collaborate with. What came unexpectedly was the appreciation it gave me for my own team at work. That there is a group of people who are literally being paid to help me write better software. The way that maintainers summarize and move discussions forward is a pleasure to behold. Working on the Go project is a great way to improve and train your communication skills. Fourth, the scale of the impact is exciting, but as T output was getting merged, I mostly felt the weight of the responsibility. I found it to be a humbling process. There's so much that is unfamiliar, and the standards are high. I made many mistakes. At the same time, I got to experience moments of being the expert regarding this one slice of the language. Another unexpected takeaway is that it satisfied my urge to continuously refine and improve code. I don't get to do that at work, at least not as much as I would like. But for the Go project, it was required to do so. Finally, I am now more interested in the ways the language will develop. It's like during a stand-up. You pay extra attention when it's time for your current collaborators to give their updates, compared to when others do. So, who knows what turn this story will take next? But after 2 years, 3 GopherCons, 500 lines of changed code, 86 comments, and possibly the longest email thread in history, I am ready to call this a win. JBA, thank you for mentoring me. Your guidance and support has meant more to me than you can imagine. Wasn't expecting to get this emotional. I'm thankful to the other reviewers and to Alex. Getting to collaborate with and learn from all these people is what defined this experience for me. Thank you to everyone who has been involved in GopherCon. You've made this story possible. Wow. All right. Wait, is there a pointer? No, okay. No laser pointer. Good. Please reach out if you have questions or want to chat. I did this presentation to get in touch with you. In fact, I just bought artirana.com for this purpose. I might add a blog later. For now, the website is barely existent, but the contact form works. I checked it. So you can use that or LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and don't skip the postcard booth. Thank you.